Hello, folks, and welcome back to Dicey Banter. We are a TTRPG show that talks to all the makers and shakers within the TTRPG space while having fun and meaningful conversations while we're at it. And as always, before we get started, a message of solidarity. I and this channel stand against genocide and ethnic cleansing, and we support all the oppressed peoples all over the world struggling against injustice, imperialism, and colonization. Free DRC, free Sudan, free Lebanon, free Palestine. At this point of recording, there have been other developments in the world, especially for folks over at stateside. And I wanted to also take this moment to kind of reaffirm and to share solidarity with my friends and family, chosen family from the United States, that we're all in this together. We build communities together, and this is not the time to despair. We are the communities that we make. And there's hope. Always there's hope with all of us together. And with that, thank you all so much for being here. I'm Valiant Dorian. I'm a TTRPG performer, GM, writer, TTRPG variety streamer, and I'm also your host for tonight's Dicey Banter. You can find me all on the internet, Valiant Dorian, or at Otso SpiritBear. Please enjoy that lovely treasure I just set you on. Tonight, I have the distinct pleasure, you can see their lovely faces here on the overlay, of interviewing our amazing guests. They are both fantastic game designers collaborating on the incredibly successful Confluence, the Living Archive. Please, folks, please introduce yourself, Kandi and Laya. We'll start with over at Kandi. Please introduce yourself to the incredible audience.
Hi, I'm Kandi. Go by Kandi Janine on socials, JeAnne. I am the lore QA lead, Lorca, of Confluence the Living Archive.
Not the Lorca.
Lorca, yes. You know, it just worked out. I do a lot of writing for the game, making sure, hopefully, that we do not have big, ginormous plot holes in the lore.
Very important.
And then also, work with playtesting and, things like that. Make sure, we come up with good products.
I love that. Laya, who are you?
Also gonna shout out Kandi for the other work that they do, because they're
Oh,
not only Confluence.
true. I make my own games as well. You can find them on itch.io.
Yes. Go do
Hopefully
that
other
right now.
places sometime next year. It is Kandi Janine on itch.io. Yeah.
And hi, I'm Laya Liebzeller. I am the project lead for Confluence, and most of my other work right now is actually happening in ARGs. You can find me at Play Scholar pretty much on everything. And I don't know, as project lead, I do a lot of administrative stuff. And when time allows, I also do writing and mechanics. I did a lot of mechanics. I started as the mechanics lead and then became the project lead after we figured out as a team that we needed one. So that's what I do. I don't know, over the summer, mostly marketing to make sure that you all know that Confluence exists. So Val, thanks for having us here and helping with that.
Of course, absolutely. And indeed, we're here to talk about Confluence, the Living Archive. It is a genre blending TTRPG of fantasy, sci-fi, horror, built to tell collaborative and place-driven stories. Ajurea is a world of meeting where strange phenomena called confluxes pull people, objects, and even entire cities together across 700,000 years of time and across over 40 worlds. Use exclamation point Confluence to back this project now and support this incredible team. Go do that right now. I'll even sit here and yap for a couple of seconds so that y'all can go click the link. Yes, there we go. Go ahead, back it. Thank you. Appreciate y'all so much. And with that, folks, I think it's time for us to get right into the Dicey Banter and into the interview itself. And what I always ask every designer that comes onto the show, I love to ask the question of origin. So I gotta ask both you, Laya and Kandi, how did the both of you get into TTRPGs?
Into TTRPGs generally. Okay.
How'd you get into this
Wow.
niche of a hobby?
That's ancient history now at this point. Let's see. Well, so hilariously, Seven, who is the owner of Publishing Goblin, which is publishing Confluence, um, introduced me to D&D in
Mm.
when I don't know, I was 16 or 17, something like that. Played like a couple of games of that, and then went directly into Shadowrun. So,
Ah,
uh, my
yes.
most of my early time was spent in highly crunchy games,
Mhm.
Pathfinder 1e, D&D 3.5, and Shadowrun 4e, I think. And then I just did it a lot forever. Uh, and then I started studying games in my undergrad, and then for my master's I studied live action role play, and then for my PhD I studied tabletop gamers. And
Love that.
yeah, and then Seven was like, "Hey, so want to write Confluence?" After I had been playtesting the games. It's about
Mhm.
2017. So Origins of Confluence is Seven wrote it in 2017, playtested it. They hated it. We loved it. They hated it. They rewrote it again in 2020. And we were like, Seven, we appreciate the rewrite. It's a little complicated. They were
Mhm.
like, cool. And now that they decided to hire a team of international designers instead of doing it themselves a third time. And that is how I got here to Confluence. Um, they did the Alleyman Tarot, and which was the largest tarot Kickstarter ever.
Yeah.
And they were like, I'm gonna use some of this cash, and I'm gonna make this game that I love, and I'm gonna hire other people to do it. So that is my origins of starting to. I just realized right now with this interview that Seven was the one that ran my first ever
Isn't
TTRPG.
that wild? Oh
I
my
don't know.
goodness.
That's the whole evolution of the beginning to now.
Oh my goodness. What an incredible journey. Candy, what about your origin?
Yeah, so it was my first year of college, and I was living in the dorm, and it's a co-ed dorm, and there was this guy that was across the hall from me, and we became friends. And I was doing like art classes and like a bunch of different classes, but art
Hmm.
was like one of my electives, right?
Yeah.
And so one day he's like, "Hey, like, do you want to play this game? You get to create your own character." And I was like, "Yeah." I've always been the creative sort, like making stuff and like stories and
Hmm.
things when I was a kid. So I was like, "Okay, yeah, sure." And he was like, "Okay." And I realize now he didn't have the books. He was doing everything from sort of memory as far as like character
Oh
creation
wow.
and like running the game. Like we never saw any books at that point. But yeah, I got to draw my own character.
Oh my
It's an
god.
elf that had like mood changing eyes. It's really cool. I still have that drawing too. It's
Oh,
great.
that's so cute. No, I love that. I love that so
Yes.
much.
Um and so yeah, that's how we got started. He left after the first year to go to a different school.
Hmm.
But a few of us sort of continued based off of what we knew. And then I just kind of, like once I left school, just kind of played a little bit there and then took a really long break.
Hmm.
About 5 years ago, I started the Dicey Amazons with a few of my friends, and we started streaming D&D games. I was GMing and producing and all that stuff at the same
Hmm.
time. And so yeah, we got into, like running games and other nerdy talk shows, and joined a community that was running a game jam for
Hmm.
BIPOC Vamp Jam for like it was like September. And so I had saw them kind of started. I didn't really understand exactly what was going on, but the very last day of the jam, I was bored. I was at home, I was bored, and
Hmm.
I'm like, I just need something to do. And I saw the jam again, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna make a game. I've always done like, made like my worlds and stuff for my games and
Yeah.
stuff. I could actually make a like an actual game. So the last day of the game jam, I made a game and submitted it for the game jam.
Hmm.
And we did a live stream of it as well because that was part of the whole thing that they were running. So we did a live stream of it. People played and everybody had fun. I had people who were like, "Oh, that's a really cool game." It's like, all right. And then I was like, okay, cool, you know? And then Leia messaged me probably a couple of weeks after that. They were in our Dicey Amazon's Discord and had been like watching our shows. And they were like, hey, putting together a team to work on this game and would like to see if you would like to apply. So I was like, I mean, I've only done one game, but I guess sure. I've done world building for like comics and stuff, but you know, so I sent them like all of that. I sent like world building for comics, and I sent them that probably that one game,
Mm-hmm.
and ended up being added to the team. And so that's actually how I joined. How I like within like a month made my first game and then joined my first team
Mm-hmm.
to to game design.
This is incredible because as we're having this conversation about the small worldliness of TTRPGs, um, folks who are regulars on this channel know this because it's deep Val lore. But those who do not know, I got into game design because of Kandi. Actually, we were on a disc. I remember this. This memory is incredibly core to my human being. I remember us being on a group Discord call over on Utopia. Shout out to Utopia. And Kandi being like, Val, you should play it. You should game design a game. You should do it right now. And I was just like, me? I just joined this space for like almost a year. And I've only been on a handful of actual plays. You want me to design a game? Okay, sure, Kandi. Here I am now. So you can thank Kandi for that. And it's wild to hear that you got to Confluence, after being reached out to by Leia, who played with Seven, and got added to the Confluence team. Because I also remember a time when we were also hanging out in Utopia, where you we're talking about Confluence in the early stages, and I was like, this is really really cool. And now I get to see it bloom right in front of my eyes, right? I feel like a really proud uncle. But yeah, like incredible. So just to clarify, so that was your first game design experience. Leia, before you joined Confluence, did you do any like game design before that? Were you making small games as part of like the academia of it all?
So okay, so that's whether or not I was a game designer before this moment is up to however you want to define game designing.
Oh, of
Based
course.
on the industry, you are not a designer until the moment that you publish. And
Yeah.
so technically, no, I did not do any game design. However, I'm a mad homebrewer. And also I play games like Shadowrun,
Mm-hmm.
which if anyone has played Shadowrun, you know that it's actually 3 games in one game, and that no matter how many times you read the hacker material, you will not understand how to run it. It is an enigma. Um,
Incredible.
so I so I designed I did a lot of designing for the
Mhm.
campaigns that I ran. And in undergrad there was a time where I was doing 6 campaigns a week,
Oh my goodness.
either as a player or running. I and a lot of my academic writing, although not published, is games of one
Mm.
kind or another, or has mechanics within it one way or another. So would I consider myself a game designer before 3 years ago? I don't think so. But did I design things for games before that time? Yes.
I give you
Um,
the Valiant Dorian seal of you were definitely a game designer before that. I think
um,
anyone who thinks extremely deeply about mechanics and applies them at any point in a creative fashion is probably a game designer.
yeah. And we'll probably talk about this a little bit later, in the later parts of the interview, but a lot of our team members were not designers
Mm-hmm.
before we hired them for Confluence.
Interesting.
But that doesn't tell me whether or not you would be good on a team. It doesn't tell me whether or not you're good at design. Like, just because you have published things actually does not tell me that you
Hmm.
are someone I want to work with, actually.
That
So,
is so actually deeply interesting. I can't wait. I'm putting a little thumbtack in that. Um, oh, hello, friend. Oh, hi, Bubby. My dog is saying hi. Um,
hello, puppy.
hello, Bubby. But yeah, like, absolutely. Like, I'm putting a little thumbtack in that. We're going to absolutely explore it. And with that, let's talk a little bit about this incredible journey that the both of y'all are on for Confluence. And as you mentioned, Confluence is comprised of a huge team, and a lot of pieces of you are within this. And as you've said, Confluence is a living archive meant to encompass a huge breadth of experiences and places and worlds. And with that, I wanted to ask you what little part of Confluence is you core game design wise, right? Like, what have you put into Confluence that's like, hi folks, when you crack open the spine of your Confluence game, that little piece there, that's me saying hi to you.
Ooh, okay, so this one's a hard one because we decided to do this thing as a Confluence team where nothing is entirely anyone's individual piece.
Mm-hmm.
Everything can be edited by anyone, and most of us, although there are small pieces, for me personally, I think that Kandi will have a different different thing to say about this, but so much of the game is so many of our voices together, and I think that's one of the things that really makes it beautiful. But in terms of pieces that I love the most, probably the Fallen Gods are where it's at. It's the first character I ever made in the 2017 playtest was a Fallen God, and I fell in love with them because they are a lineage that is in the process of death, essentially. They're a god, they were a god, they fell, and every time they use their power, they are losing power. And when they lose all of their power, they become a part of the world. And essentially die. And so I worked a lot on the mechanics for Divinity, which is the magic that they have. And it's for me, at least, when I play those characters, it is a meditation in death, and I don't find a lot of games that are willing to confront some of that stuff, and so that's, I think, probably, although the mechanics have been written and edited so many times by so many people, I do think that Divinity, I would say, like, that's the thing that I have added a lot of heart to.
I love that. And also a big lover of Divinity, and we'll definitely be talking about that later on in the interview. Kenny, what about you? What's the little piece of you that folks can see in the Confluence?
So I'm also on the settings team, which means that I've done a lot of brainstorming and writing of the setting, right? I have been lucky enough that a lot of the things that I named are in there. So the biggest thing that I've named actually is the world Ajurea. Like, it didn't have, I don't know if it didn't have a name before. I don't think it actually had a name before. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, like I racking my brain trying to figure out like what was this world like at the very beginning of this era, things like that. And I'm like, and so ended up putting a couple of words together and came up with Ajurea. And everybody loved it, so it was kept. But I've named a few things that I'm really proud of. And then me and one of the other designers were like sort of the two main people that did the initial brainstorming for the Motley Coast. So a lot of our ideas, even though like people have added to it and even taken stuff away and things like that, but a lot of the like core ideas for the region that we're crowdfunding right now is a lot of the ideas that came from like our two-person team, and then people were like, okay, yeah, this is cool, let's add more to it. Like, I don't know about this. Yeah. So those two are very proud of. I want to do a bit of a sneak peek for the future though, because this was this not a mistake. It was
I'm looking.
it was a coincidence. It was a coincidence.
A Dicey
right?
Banter exclusive.
Right, Dicey Banter exclusive. So in a future region, I ended up naming the floating. There's a like a tower with floating cities that sort of spin around this tower. And what I've always loved, like if you've ever seen Queen of the Damned, the movie, like the name Akasha. I was like, I freaking love that name. I
It's a
want to
good
use
name.
it in something. I had never
It's a
used
good
it
name.
in anything. It is. It is. I love the way it sounds, and I'm like, ah, oh, so good. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to name these flying cities Akasha, and had no idea of the origins of the word.
Oh.
Right. Yes.
Me
It's
looking in Sanskrit, yeah? Mm-hmm.
yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to?
No, you go ahead.
No.
No, go ahead.
All
You're
right.
the guest. I'm the
So
interviewer.
so we have Shabam, our creative lead, is from India, and
Love,
he came
follow
on
him at Lore
after.
Garden. He's great.
Yes, Lord God. Yes, we love Shabam. And so he came on after we had kind of named like this stuff. And he was like, did y'all like do this on purpose? And I'm like, what? And he's like, well, it means like air. Like Akasha like means like air. And I'm like, I had no idea.
Yeah, it does.
So
Sanskrit.
that was perfect. And then the region that this city is in is called Agni or Agni.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit of a different spelling for Agni, and it has these oh god, what are the sands called, Leah? The molten, like it's like the
We might have just called it the black sands, the boiling beaches.
well,
I don't remember.
yeah,
I'd have to
I
go
don't
look
remember
on
at
it.
the moment. Yeah,
It's
yeah. It's been a minute since we touched the region, and it may have changed, but it's like these really hot sands that people like. You can't step on it during like different times of the day because it is so hot, and it's a lot of the region. And so, also really had no idea. We were like, "Oh, this is."
Oh
Gonna
no,
be
I
like
did that on
sort of
purpose, Kandi.
Lace, huh?
I did that on purpose. That was Agni. Agni was on purpose.
Hmm.
Um,
Was
that
it?
yeah,
Okay.
yes,
But yeah,
yes.
so that one being like fire,
Yeah.
like, and so it's just like these couple of things. So it was like, okay, cool.
Oh, I love.
So those like love like those little like things like that. Like, oh, just happened to work out.
My sweet baby boy is honking away. So, folks in the audience, I want you to play a fun little game. I want you to send a funny little Otso pop emote every time you hear my dog whine on camera. Please enjoy this little mini game I just came up with. With that, thank you both so much. That's so cool. Wild that you named a place about air Akasha without knowing what it meant and then being
Yeah.
right the whole time. We love how things work out that way. Amazing. Thank you
Right?
so much, folks. With that, we've talked about Confluence, the little pieces of you that exist within, and we've talked a lot about this game, and I kind of made a little introduction, but I want to ask both the Lorca as well as the project manager of Confluence, what is it? What is Confluence? What makes it different from TTRPGs that we often see on the crowdfunding sites?
So we have been talking and talking and talking about how we want to present this game.
Yeah.
Because it is so many things.
It's massive. Yeah.
And even just the Motley Coast is so many things. Like, and Motley Coast is one region on one continent, right? And then we have 5 other continents, each of which has a minimum of 3 regions. And so, like, this, it's incredibly massive space, and it tells an incredible number of stories. And so what I would say is that we landed on this is a place-driven game because you can play pretty much anyone. You can play a whole host of various stories. Each place can even host many, many different themes and many different types of play, from things like mysteries to adventure to just a slice of life. And but all of them happen in Ajurea. And it has to be from the Ajurian perspective. So although it is a game that can do anything, it's a game that can do anything in Ajurea. So you have to buy in to this world of Ajurea. And you have to be down for, you're not going to find a whole lot of lineages that are familiar. And the ones that are familiar are still different somehow,
Hmm.
are still different in some way, and are deeply, like, every person is deeply from this place. So what does that mean, especially when you're coming from a world that's always changing, a world that can
Mhm.
be um, one thing one day and something completely different the next,
Yeah.
where the people that you love can be there one day and completely gone the next. Um, I think that it's very queer.
It
I
is.
think that it, I think that it's very found family. I think that it's very uh, about finding your place in the world always,
Mhm.
and that your place in the world is always changing, which I think is a very queer experience. I think that even as we find ourselves settled in our identity, that doesn't necessarily mean that we find ourselves settled in the world that we live in
Yeah.
from one moment to the next, which I think is particularly poignant right now, on November the 7th.
As we continuously live in interesting times.
Yes, yeah. So I think, yeah, that's what I would say. Is
That's a beautiful
it's
answer. Thank you,
many
Leia.
things.
What are you, Candy? Anything to add?
Um, so I think Leia explained sort of your time in the world really well. One of the things that we do to help you with a buy-in is that we've made the setting books in world. And so these are books that like your character would be holding in the world. And not a lot of games do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so what it does, and oh god, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but Aaron Voigt, maybe Voigt.
Oh yeah, Aaron
Uh,
Voigt.
is it Voigt? Okay, all
Yeah,
right.
I think
Um,
so. That's how I've been reading it. Let
okay,
me know
that's
in the
yeah,
comments.
yes, Aaron, if you're watching, let us know. But one of the things that he like noticed in the game, or not noticed in the game, but sort of explained, is that like more games should do the in-world thing because like traditional setting books bring you outside of the game, right?
Mhm.
Those are the opinions of the people writing the game on the lineages, on the cultures, and on the things like that. And so it kind of pulls you outside of the game.
Yeah.
But having the in-world book, um, like everything is from people in the game, and so you're not pulled outside by
Mm.
the opinions of the designers necessarily when you're
Mm.
in this in-world book. And so it's a lot easier, I think, to get buy-in and to run games in something like this.
Yeah. Oh, I love
And so
that
that's,
so much.
yeah, it's definitely one thing that I love about Confluence, and I'm so decided we so excited we went in this direction.
Oh, I love that. I love that so much. Confluence is so exciting. And it is a beautiful backer kit that you should go and look at right now. Exclamation point Confluence. And with that, folks, let's talk about the team. You've got a massive team, of incredible folks who are, I would say, beloved designers and writers, um, role many hat wielders within the TTRPG space. And I wanted to, we spoken in the production meeting that there was, great efforts made in the selection of this team and aligning with values. And I wanted to like hear more about that process of like selecting this team and the values that y'all were upholding throughout this selection process.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can give history to that. So Stefan came to me, and because, okay, so really what happened was in 2017, 2020, I played this game and I was like, Stefan,
Mm-hmm.
if you ever want anyone to work on this game, please let me work on this game. I want to work on this game. And and then they were like, yes, Leia, you can work on this game. Who else do you want on this game? And so I originally pulled in Lauren, and Danny, both Danny, a longtime friend of mine, and a designer that hasn't published anything because um he just hasn't put out any of the massive number of games that he has made in his not because he
Oh my
has not
god.
designed things. Staring at you, Danny, publish some stuff, please. And, um And Lauren, we were in our masters together. She was an editor, is an editor, and had not edited TTRPGs, but was a longtime player. And I was like, I know I can work with both of these people. Like I know that these two people, I will enjoy being around, which is
Yeah.
really one of the, I think, probably the core concept of a lot of the folks that we have hired
Mhm.
is like, will I enjoy being in your presence? The number of hours that will be required to make this
Oh
game.
yeah, making a whole game. I mean, I heard about Confluence years ago. Uh, so yeah, lots of collaboration over several years.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And from there we were like, well, to be so frank, we were like, well, this is a really white team. It's got a lot of queers and it's got a lot of gays, but we need other voices here. The point of Confluence is to have as many voices as we possibly can
Yeah.
in order to create a world of diaspora and a world of I mean, that is in some places a true melting pot and others
Yeah.
like deeply divisive.
Mhm.
And so we needed a lot of different perspectives from a lot of different places. So from there, Seven hired Takuma,
Mhm.
in part because
Yes.
they're a game designer and because they have really tight systems. And we were like, well, Danny and me will expand until the cows come home. So we need someone who can bring it in and
Yeah.
really tighten it up. And Taco has definitely done that. And then we were like, this is not enough people. So then we were like, we're going to hire more people. And for this, we actually did a hiring run. And instead of putting something out into the world, being like, hey, we're hiring, we made a list of people that we were like, here are the people that we have seen whose work that we really love in and out of the TTRPG space, but are all creatives that we would like to interview. And we sent out emails saying, hey, we'd like to invite you to interview for this position. And then we did a lot of interviewing. Which, by the way, takes so much time. Holy crap.
Oh yeah.
And that is how we brought on Kandi and VD, and
that was it. Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, okay. And also, I forgot about Shan.
Well,
Shan has
yeah,
also been here from the beginning. Shan has worked with Seven on lots of their projects, and is an amazing artist, and has been also been there. Seven was like, "This is the only person I care about. Shan's going to be on this team." So
I met both Takuma and Shan at Beg Back on past week, 2 weekends ago now.
Yeah.
So that was great.
Yeah, and then we waited a year, and then we hired everyone else. Which, so for the record, I really thought that 14 was like a small team. I was like, oh, this is not a big team, and then everyone in the world was like, Leia, that's a massive TTRPG.
I mean,
team. I mean,
it's a small. I guess it's a small team in regards to kind of like if we're looking at like the tabletop giants in the space, right? Who have massive teams that they have on payroll, just constantly making games. Yes, it would be considered perhaps small, but I guess working indie, it is quite a large team.
Quite a large team,
it's
yeah.
quite a large team because typically, who was I speaking to about this? I was speaking to someone about this. I can't remember, but it's wild to learn about how many projects or like very beloved games were either written or entirely developed by like a handful of people, maybe 2-3 people, and then put out into the world.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely, it's wild. Anyway, I don't know, you asked about the ethos. So the ethos was really like, do we like this person? And do we think their work is going to work well with others? So, like, for instance, Kandi sent in some journals from characters that she'd written and some world history for a comic that she'd written, for instance, and no game, like, mechanics material at all, except for the vampire game. Except for the vampire game.
BIPOC Vamp Jam, yeah.
BIPOC Vamp Jam. And we had a couple of other people over the course that was the vibe, where they sent in world building pieces rather than mechanics pieces. And that's like, the interviews were really based on like, how are you going to fit into this team and what does that look like, and do you have as much like reading this material, because we sent out all of our material too. I had like a whole welcome packet that like in the invite to interview that was like, this is this game. And so one of the things we were looking for was like, how bought in are you to this idea? Like, are you going to have as much passion for this thing as the others on this team do right now? Are you in for a very collaborative game making process? And one that works largely on consensus? Like, are you in to question the way that things have worked previously in other spaces that you may have worked in? And is that an adventure you want to take? Right? So so that was the ethos of that. And I don't know if I'll ever go back. I don't know if I'll ever do another round of hiring where I just do a random call to people. I think that it's very likely that I will invite people in. And it wasn't just friends, right? Like, I had never actually spoken to Kandi before. I was just like, her work on Dicey Amazons is rad, and I want to hear more about that. Right? So it's also about like having your pulse on who's out there in a lot of different creative spaces, and being like, who can we bring in that maybe would not have a voice, or like it would be harder for them to have a space. So that was our initial hiring stuff. Kandi, you probably have a really different perspective on all of that. I have no idea.
I would love to hear.
I mean, not really. Because remember, I was fully involved in the second hiring process a year later, right? With the second half of the team. And so like I saw the interview process grow. Like we kind of like made sure, like, went over the interview process and was like, okay, let's, do this instead, and blah blah blah. But like one of the things that you mentioned, like you said, that was very important was like vibe. Like, we were interviewing these people and we're like, do we think this person would vibe with our team? And that was very big, because we knew, well, I don't know at the time, because at the time I don't think we knew it was going to be as long as we have taken.
No.
But we're like, we're going to be working on this very closely, and at least for a while, right? And so we need to make sure that these people vibe with with our team. And so I mean, and there is a like a probation period, right? We were like, hey, you get this chance to work with the team and do these things and really see if you actually do vibe with the team. And if you don't, you can step away. You're like, okay, you know what, this isn't really gonna work for me. That's part of the contract, right? And so I think that was the biggest thing. And like, anytime we're gonna do any future hiring, like, that is going to be one of the main things to make sure that our team stays running smoothly, is making sure that you work well with us.
I think that's like incredibly important, is to ensure that a team is able to function and work together well, right? Especially 14 people. That's a lot of people. You want at the very least, you want to at least be able to know that you'll function and work well together, right? In this massive team. And another interesting thing about Confluence's team is that not only is it a large team within the indie space, it's also a very international team, and which is not necessarily very, very widely seen, sadly, with insert a plethora of reasons as to why. How did you both, and like the team as a whole, continuously build this team, and also continuously support all that talent, especially the international talent that you have within your team? What was that like?
So it was very fortunate, the timing that we were starting to look for people was when I like found out that I got a scholarship to Big Bad 2 years ago. 3 years ago. How many ever years ago? 3 years ago.
What is time?
And so, right. And so I got, at the time, it was one of the POC scholarships.
Yeah.
And so they put us in this Discord with other like people. And so then we were starting to like look for people, and I'm like, oh, like amazing people. I kind of started like looking through their sites and stuff, and I'm like, oh man, we've got some really nice people in here. And so like some of the invites went out because I found these people through the who also got the POC scholarship. And so it was just like perfect timing for that.
Which is why upholding POC specific talent is important, folks.
Right.
And these spaces matter.
And I got to tell like the people that made it from, made it to the team. I got to tell them at Big Bad, and it was so much fun.
Oh, that's so cool.
Like,
oh, that's
seeing
wonderful.
Like the shock and the excitement, and for people, it was so much fun.
I mean, I could see the love from the Confluence team even in this year's Big Bad. It was lovely to see. But yes, Leia, what would you like to add?
Yeah, I mean, so our second round of hiring, I guess the one after Kandi, we were specifically focused on international voices. Those were the people that we invited for the most part, were people from elsewhere, not in the United States. And because we knew that we were going to be not only approaching some of our regions in a way that was like, look, like, so Agni and Lujan, which are on a different continent that we have produced a lot of work on already, are both deeply impacted by kind of like by the Philippines and by Southeast Asia. Both Shabam and Sin worked closely on those, and it, like Agni has a lot of mangroves, for instance, and we wanted to make a place that brought to light some of the non-America, right? Like, let's not do again the dragons of the United Kingdom, and the mythology of that. So how do we do that? How do we do it respectfully? How do we do it while uplifting voices from those spaces? And we do that by hiring people from those places. Like, that's really the in my opinion, that's really the only way to do it.
That is the long and short of it, folks. That's what you should do. I agree.
And I mean, it hasn't been a cakewalk, right? Like, we really did have to sit down with Sin and be like, okay, so Sin, we have a 14-hour time difference. Are you sure you want to do this? Like, is this something that you want to commit to? Because a lot of your work is going to be happening at 2 a.m. And I mean, luckily Sin kind of already works on US time because of other pieces of their life, but that hasn't always been easy. Shabab, wakes up at 6 or 7 a.m., 5 to 7 a.m., depending on the time of year, to make it to some of our meetings and that kind of thing. So I think like, how it's really about being like, okay, so for this meeting I'm gonna get up at 2 a.m. and for this next meeting you're gonna get up at 2 a.m. and
we all share the 2 a.m.
We're gonna share this weird time zone thing going on. And I mean, otherwise it's just about the age-old yes and of most TTRPG spaces. If you want to know how to support people, you say yes and to basically anything that you can.
I love that.
I think, for anyone that is like looking to start a team and wants any advice about it, whatever makes a good TTRPG table will probably make a good design team. What are the things that you love about the groups that have gone really well? Those are the things you should look for if you want to create together, because TTRPGs are all about creating together. So if you can see yourself playing with somebody, you can probably see yourself working with them.
That's a great point. And I think that's the perfect opportunity for us to take this opportunity to get a 10-minute break. Thank you, folks, so much for tuning in to Dicey Banter. Please get up, stretch, pet your pets. Tell them Mr. Valley and Dorian loves them very, very much. and we will be back. And tune into all the cool Confluence material and marketing after this, and maybe take the time to back the project while we're taking this 10-minute break. With that, we will see you soon, folks. Take care. Bye. Hello, folks, and welcome back to Dicey Banter. I hope you took the time to get up, stretch, pet your pets, and tell them Mr. Valiant Dorian loves them very, very much. And with that, we're back with a couple of the designers from the massive team over at Confluence, which is a great reminder to please use exclamation point guests to go and follow these incredible creators on their relevant social media platforms, as well as to use exclamation point Confluence to go and back the project right now. Don't worry, I'll wait. Go ahead, type that in. Yes, click that link and then go and follow that. Thank you so much. All right, with that, folks, let's get right back into the interview. We're going to be covering some of Confluence's key mechanics so y'all can get a nice feel for the game and hear it directly from the designers about designing it and playing through it, as well as some other fun topics that we will cover shortly. But with that, let's talk about Confluence. So it's called Confluence, the Living Archive. And it's described as a magical archive to house a plethora of genre and fantastical experiences, right? So what was the design approach to build a game that is meant to encompass several genres, as well as fantastical experiences within it? Most games, even with just one genre, I'm looking at you, Invisible Suns, with surrealism, encompass several books and is also massive. What was the design approach here?
Seven had been working on this world since they were 17.
Incredible.
And so that was it. They were like, here's the information I have. Please change and grow it. Please cut the things that, are not necessarily when you're 17, you have a lot of beliefs about the world, and when you lay down a world with those beliefs, they are not always the most updated by the time you hit 35.
Probably not.
One of the things that we did as a team, especially an international and global team, was to say, maybe that is not the way we want to go. We want to change it to be to incorporate more diverse perspectives and things like that. So the reason that you can do so much in Confluence is because Confluence was so big when we got it. When it was handed to us, it was gigantic, and it is okay. So the actual answer to this is that it is the conversion space of all of Seven's other work. So Seven works in one singular, very large universe with over 40 worlds. Every single game they make, basically everything they write, I think outside of some other poetry, is all in this one universe that Confluence is in. Confluence is the nexus point for all of those worlds. So the most of the things that get pulled into Ajurea are from this one world that we're in. On one of the 14 eras, which spans everything from fantasy gods to high tech, the internet grows on plants. Has pretty much any magic you can think of, and several that you probably haven't. And so that on its own is huge, but it can also pulls in things from every other world that Seven has ever worked on. And Seven was like, make a system for that. And we were like, cool. We'll do that, I guess.
I mean, okay, so hearing that, I mean, obviously, same question to you, Kandi, but also from your perspective as a self-described Lorca, being handed this sort of massive tome worked on since Seven was 17 years old. What was the approach there from a lore perspective?
So when I first joined the team, we were one of the very first things that we did was go through each era. And we sort of had to boil that era down to a few pages, what is this about, what's here, and then add ideas on top of that for each era of this world of Confluence. And then we had to do that for some of the other worlds that Leia is talking about as well, because some of those things have been kind of pulled into the world. So we kind of had to do that, you know, just boil everything down so that we can understand it better, because it was just so much information.
Yeah.
But when we first started, we were originally doing sort of a traditional TTRPG book.
Okay.
It wasn't in world. It wasn't like, you know, the way it is now. And so from there we were like, it's not really fitting the world very well. And it took us a while to sort of pivot to where we are now. So it was like we started adding some of the things. We're like, okay, we want ephemera, we want like these things, and then it ended up into, okay, you know what, this is going to be an in-world book. It just makes so much more sense for this wide world and like all of the things in it for this to be an in-world book. And so that was sort of the way that went. And once we hit on those ideas of the in-world and the ephemera being really important and like all of those things, then we were like, okay, then we kind of hit the ground running, right? We still make changes here and there, but once we hit that, I think that also may have helped. Leia, you could maybe, you know, add on to this, but I think that may have also helped mechanics as well. Like once we kind of figured out like our way, I think it helped mechanics also figure out their way a little quicker as well.
I mean, certainly. So, I mean, in the beginning, I was the mechanics lead, so that's where I started.
Yeah.
Obviously, we already had the 2017 and 2020 version, which were both wildly different from each other. And Seven had also written games for several of the other eras already, and so we had to we were looking at those for ideas. And I think, okay, so if I think back, I think we probably went through, just as a team, since we started in 2021, I think we went through 6 like major mechanics revisions in terms of like changing the very like nature of how the game worked, and in an attempt to figure out how to take not only the setting that Seven had been working on, but also the setting that the settings was creating, and be able to create mechanics that felt like you were really there. I think especially like that was always something that we really wanted from our mechanics, is that you feel that you are in this world, in part because it's such a different world than a lot of people are used to playing in, that we wanted the mechanics to really place you there. And so we went through several iterations. I think that it really came to where it's at when settings and mechanics merged a little bit more clearly. We started as 2 very separate teams working on similar material, and became one team August of last year. We were like, nah, we got to revamp how this is working so that we can marry these things a little bit more together, and have been working on creating more ties between those things as time has gone on, which I think is what, for those who have play tested the game, those looking at the playtesting material now, will see as we finish the mechanics. One of the things that we're really trying to work on is significantly more marriage between different mechanics, and also between settings and mechanics, because those mechanics have come again from 5 or 6 wildly different mechanics hearts, essentially. So now we're like, okay, how do we put all these things together though? They all work individually, but how do they work together? Does that answer your question?
That does. It does absolutely absolutely answers my question, which I think like brings me to the next part, which is folks are going to be wondering at home. Dice pool, rolling dice. What's that like? So for folks at home, the dice system is indeed a D6 dice pool system where players roll simultaneously. I want to hear about more kind of like the design choices behind having players rolling simultaneously. It's a very, very interesting mechanic to have players almost co-sign victories and potential losses together in an interesting collaborative way. But I want to hear directly from the designers about why was that suitable for the world of Confluence, and why this system.
So technically, we have 3 different types of rolls you can make. The first 2 will be fairly familiar because it's D6. The first one is a quick roll. You don't have anything on your sheet that says, yeah, I can definitely do that, but you want to roll anyway. That's your quick roll. It's roll of luck. Can you do the thing? Yes or no? Which gives you control over the narrative. So if you win, it's not like now you do the thing. It's you as the player get to say, yeah, I'm going to do this, and this is how I'm going to do it. Technically, you could also be like, actually, I failed that, and here's how I failed that. No one ever does that, but that is open to you. It's something you want to do.
It's just because I haven't been in the play testing. That would be what I would be doing, baby. Folks with Translator know this as the player with the lowest roll ever in Translator history.
The second one I'll talk about is facets, and I'll come to the scene roll, which is one that you're asking about last. So the facets, essentially, we came into it wanting players to be able to choose how they wanted to play this game, whether they wanted it to be more, I take a lot of notes and I find cool stuff and I write that down. If they wanted to have like hardcore mechanics that they're like, here's exactly how I roll these dice and this is what means a win or a lose. And I like, I'm going to keep track of every arrow I ever throw at anyone. Or if they just want something really simple. And so we created facets, which are the core kind of like, these are the skills that I have. These are the things that make me, these are the experiences that kind of make me who I am in terms of like what I do with my time. So like you might be a swordsman, you might be a sailor, you might be a performer, you might be really good at social stuff. And so there are all these facets that you can take that give you different rules and therefore arguably different types of tools. You can bring in D10s, you can bring in journaling, you can bring in a deck of cards, or cough cough in the future, a tarot deck, cough cough. You can
Please, there's such good art. Please, yes.
And so facets really allow you to tailor your character not only in what your character does, but what you and as the player do at the table. And then what you're asking about is the scene roll. The scene roll is essentially the way that you create scenes collaboratively. It is likely the one that's going to change the most as we move forward. But that's because of player feedback from beta 1 and 1.5. But right now, the way that it works is all of the players one player and the GM or story leader SL will roll up to 3d6 per person, and then you compare those dice to see who wins. Each one of those dice is assigned to something. So for a player, it might be like, I'm really good at swords and I'm in a sword fight. So you have a dice that it controls how well do you do with your swords. You have one that's like, I have one of the other players is playing a character that is going to like give me a really cool speech about how cool I am, and that is going to give me a confidence boost, and here's this d6 for that. And then also I'm like, this terrain is for whatever reason favorable for us. And so like maybe I grew up on in a like on an island and we're fighting on a beach. Well, then I should get a d6 because I can maneuver on beaches well. And so so you have these 3d6, and then DSL creates their difficulty pool, which is all the things working against you. Perhaps your enemy is a very good swordsman as well, so they have a d6. Perhaps you have a wound on you, and that's going to give you a detriment of some kind. And maybe like your enemy also has allies, or maybe you're in a really hot place and you're from a cold place, and so like that's going to work against you here. And you roll those things, and then the player matches those dice up.
Mm-hmm.
So the player could say, well, I'm a good swordsman and they're a good swordsman. We're going to put our d6 on swords together, and and like whoever gets the higher number is the one that wins for those
Yeah.
swords. And then you orate like, okay, so he beat me. How does that, why? Like what happened? And you can do with those dice a couple of different things. You can just say, here's how they match up, and as a table, this is what happened, and then we move on.
Yeah.
Or you can also say, this is the outcomes of these things, but we still want to role play. So then you can role play through the whole scene, saying these are going to kind of be some of the beats here,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to see what comes out of that role play. So depending on how you want to take those things,
Yeah.
that is what a scene roll is and how those d6 work. Why does that work? Because we thought it was cool. That's really I don't know.
That's a good enough reason. That's a good enough reason. I say this as someone who made a D12 dice system for his game, because I think they're neat and no one loves them enough. And then I found out why people don't use it. It's because the
Well,
math
we
is
started
really
with
weird.
a D12 system. We started with we're very like, we're gonna have a D12. And we were like, actually, we can't do this right now. But I will make a D12 game someday. It's gonna happen.
I saw the math doesn't make sense, and I went, bet I will somehow make it make sense by sheer
Yeah.
willpower alone and queer audacity.
Or just accept that it doesn't work, and I'm also here for that. Like,
Yeah.
that's fine. So yeah, so I mean, the initial answer is because it's cool. The second answer is because it allows you to bring in the things that would be most important to that scene, whether that be the environment and the world itself, whether that be the characters at the table, whether that be particular pieces of who you are or what you can do, without having to rely on a facet. And so ultimately, like, you can spotlight more than one person.
Yeah.
You can work as a team in a lot of different ways, and that's some of the ways that we're going to be changing that too, is so that it can be more of a teamwork centered as opposed to one player rules against the SL at the table. We want to make it more collaborative at the table itself. So that's what we're working on for that system right now. But basically, we wanted a quick roll where you could just get it done. One player rolls one thing and you move on.
Oh, I love
And
that.
we wanted one that was like, here, we're going to take some time actually and figure this out. And figure this out together. And it's certainly a different way of playing. Like, our playtesters have a lot of thoughts on the scene roll. Some of them are like, this is amazing, and some of them are like, why isn't this just in D&D? And so, like,
playtesting, am I right?
yeah, well, yes, yeah.
Exactly.
But yeah, so that's, I mean, yeah, that's, I don't know, Kandi, I don't know if you have other stuff
No,
you
I
wanted to
have.
say.
That was great.
Cool.
Have nothing to add to
I
that.
love that. Thank you for explaining to the folks at home what they can expect and the cool new ways that this game can grow and develop from the point that we see it on BackerKit. Amazing. So let's talk about Confluence. I'm looking at you, Lorca. I'm looking at you, my beloved Kandi, the Lorca of Confluence.
Catching on. Let's go.
Listen. Oh, thanks, captions. So Confluence is unique in many, many different facets. We've talked about this. One of the most key and important kind of like cornerstones within the game itself is location. Location and places and significance. Locations mean a lot. And there are location-based mechanics. And I want to hear more from the both of y'all, probably starting with Kandi, about what was the process like in building the location-based mechanics and marrying it with the substantial amount of lore that exists within Confluence.
Yeah, so like I kind of mentioned earlier, like Motley Coast is just one region out of several. And we've actually started work on several of the other ones. And because there's so much land in this world. Like, there's so much land. We
So many
were
lands.
like, okay, Yeah, we're like, okay, we've got so much we need to fill that we want to make each like place that you go to feel different.
Mm.
Now, some of them might have similar sort of themes because there's another sort of time city that
Yeah.
is in here. In like Motley Coast, we've got Krona, which is a time bubble city, but there's another sort of time city. But we want to still make each place feel different, and so with that, when we were coming up with like sort of these locations, we were also
Mm-hmm.
thinking about ideas on like smaller things that would be different in each of these locations,
Okay.
right? And so in the game, we have what we call focuses. And focuses are the story elements of your game.
Mm-hmm.
Those can be locations, it can be NPCs, items, it can be a goal for your group. They're
Okay.
just story elements for your game.
Cool.
And so one of the ways that we decided to sort of mechanize locations was within these focuses. So each focus is going to tell you like what it is, give you a brief description, and then it's going to have traits. And so with those traits, they can be either narrative or mechanical.
Mm-hmm.
And so so one of them is like Red's Pub. Actually hold on. I might be thinking Red's Pub is
We
Gravity
need to
Isle.
add Red's Pub because it's not there, but we
Wrong
reference
one.
it all the
Okay.
time. So we do need to write it.
Schrodinger's
Right.
Red Pub.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the pub in Brighton, right? So
That
Brighton
is Red's
is
Pub, yeah.
Gravity Isle.
That's-
Oh, okay, it is. Okay, cool. All
We
right,
just never wrote a
so
focus for it, that's all.
okay, you not?
Not that's in the atlas. We looked at this, both Sid and I looked at this, we were like, what the
It's in the
Red's
Sigla.
Pub's not here?
I
Like,
think it's in the Sigla. We wrote it for the Sigla.
That's so
yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
Yes.
it's-
So the Confluence Guide to the Living Archive is the rule book. So
Yeah.
we've got like examples of focuses in there, and one of them I believe is Red's Pub if I remember right, which is in the Gravity Isles. And so so you can have like a narrative trait.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, hey, you go in, this pub has this special gravity well
Cool.
in the middle, right? And so with that, you can, your characters will know that this thing is there and they'll be able to interact with it, right?
Mm.
But you can also make that very same thing a mechanical trait, right? So now you got this gravity well, and do they actually know how to use it? And so you can have like a dice roll, like if somebody like maybe is a tensormancer that is a gravity magician or does gravity magic, they might actually know how to work this well. And so
Yeah.
now you can make a roll and say, oh, okay, this person, knows how to work this well. They've rolled really well. Now they can do something very specific with this well, right? And so so with the locations, like it can be city, it can be like a actual like building or place in it. And so being able to kind of put these very small sort of mechanics in the traits of the focuses is what allowed us to make this more of a, I guess, location based game,
Yeah.
right? And so yeah, you can add to these things. So if you within the course of the game, if you and the story leader y'all come up with a story, y'all can add traits to these focuses. And so now you know more about this location, and you can do more things at this location, and you can come up with your own mechanics or narrative driven traits for these places.
Oh, I love that. That's
Yeah.
really, really deeply cool. Leah, any other additional thoughts you'd like to share about location-based
Yeah,
mechanics?
absolutely. So the other two major location-based mechanics that we have are themes and area traits. Themes are significantly more narrative. These are
Okay.
things that you decide on generally at the beginning of your game during calibration, but can change as your game changes. So we advise that at the top or the bottom of each session or every other session, whatever feels good, you care for your table in some way, and one of those things that you do is reviewing your themes. Now, these might be like, the high life, or like they just like, this is going to be a dangerous campaign. We have the city that never sleeps as one of them.
Motley Coast
For
City.
Motley Coast City, we have like cult activity as a theme. Over in the Gravity Isles, we have small town living in Rickenby. So like each place has themes that already come with it. You add your own themes based on kind of like your lions and veils or the things that you're looking for within this game. And then as you change locations, if you change locations, you would then alter those themes. So if you went from a small town living in this little town of Riggenby and then you were going to the big city of Motley Coast, as you move, you would review your themes and say, what do we want to add? What do we want to change?
Yeah.
And what does that mean for a campaign? Or the story leader might be like, yeah, you know what? Actually, I'm just going to throw in some, deep, dark danger to this for whatever reason, so long as your players are fine with that, and massively alter it by changing the game by changing the theme.
Yeah.
Players and the story leader can both pull on the theme as they are making scene rolls, as they are doing things with their facets and specialties, as they are
Yeah.
so they can be like, well, I mean, this is a really dangerous place. So like like that's going to impact how many wounds you have, those kinds of things. Or like, this is a really dangerous place and I'm from here, which means I'm dangerous, and this newcomer is coming in, that means I get to wound them more. So like you can pull on those things to make arguments for the things that you would like to do as you're moving through. Area
This is an
traits are,
incredibly powerful system to give to the hands of the Transplaner team, is all I'm saying. Because they're one of the
yeah.
stretch goals. Transplaner fans, make it happen. Because this is a very powerful tool to give us.
Yeah. If we could get to that transplanter.
No,
That would be
I'm sitting
amazing.
here and I've
Wow.
already come up with 5 things my fellow players and castmates can and will do to me within the system.
Then area traits are like focus traits, but for areas in their totality. So you might have like a particular ward of Motley Coast City might have area traits. Motley Coast City itself has area traits. The Path of the Thousand Shrines has area traits, which is like a pilgrimage across many different fallen gods' shrines across the region itself. I think the train has some area traits, so you can really tailor where you put area traits depending on where you're at. But these are generally mechanical and do something like you get double wounds in this area. You get an extra d6 for sneak rolls. You get a -2 on like fading into the crowd because you're going to stand out because everyone is super, for whatever reason, dresses exactly the same, and you are coming into this place and you do not look like a local. Or might even like say, as soon as you walk in, you now have like a tracker for trust. Like, do the people here trust you? And you can see that raise and fall, right? So like all of those are really tailored to either the environment of the place or to the culture of the place. And we have written a lot of those in, but obviously you can also make your own. So those are the major location
Lots of tools, both on
so many.
the story leaders like arsenal, but also for the players. I can only imagine the devastation that can be levied against one another, as well as fun little shenanigans that can happen from that. That's really deeply cool. And now we get to talk about a thing that I find very, very interesting. This is a selfish question for Mr. Valiant Dorian. There are also things in Confluence known as anomalies.
Yes.
I would love for either one of y'all to let us know. Actually, I want both of y'all to not only let me know about like your thoughts behind the anomalies, what they are, and which are your favorites.
Kandi, I just talked to lunch, so it's you.
Candy's your turn.
Yes, the analogous anomalies is basically the magic of Confluence. Well, the
and
magic
tech.
Yeah, I was going to say the magic and the technology of Confluence, because as a person of the world, sometimes it actually might be a little hard to figure out which is which. Like, some tech may look like magic to some people, and some magic may look like tech to others. And so that's what we are calling our sort of magic and tech in this world.
Slight addendum question to that. For the Lorca, why anomalies as the title for magic and tech? and the many different versions of it within the spectrum.
Okay, so
I'm just
so
curious. I'm a lore guy. I'm
yeah. So
curious.
at first it was just magic and tech. It was separated out. And when we were sort of thinking about the world, we're like, hey, like even though it may be generations later, a lot of this stuff was brought into Confluence with the people, places, and things that have been pulled into it, right? So most of it is not um what's the word I'm looking for? It's not from
Mm-hmm.
this era. And so because you have all of these different people from all of these different worlds like
Mm-hmm.
looking at these things, I think it just sort of seemed right that they were like anomalies,
Yeah.
right? Like you don't like it's not something that came from your world. There's several things that didn't come from your world, and they work very differently from the things
Mm.
in your world. And so I think that's where like the sort of
Very
anomalies
cool.
came from.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just curious. I'm a lore guy. Sorry to
Yeah,
interrupt you. Please
I
do you
continue.
will
got
no,
anything
I
to
will
add to
add
that little?
to
Yeah, thank
that
you. So I
really
think I
fast.
might
So
be missing something. Yeah.
the other thing is that anomaly technically comes from Sujata. So we said we have two books that
True.
are
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
the world. Now, most of the time we talk about the Atlas because it's
Hmm.
the coolest book we have. But we also
Yeah.
have Sujata's journal.
Yep. Mhm.
Sorry, the name of that book has changed a couple of times. So I just wanted to make sure I got it right.
Yeah.
Okay, Sujata's journal, and Sujata is someone who is coming in and exploring the world. She's a
Yeah.
scientist, and her whole thing is, I'm going to categorize this
Hmm.
stuff that's
Mm-hmm.
here. And so, in terms of words, it's something that she would use, and also encompasses everything because, like, not everything we have is magic and tech. So that's one of the things that really said maybe we don't want to call this magic and technology because some of these things
Yeah. So
aren't
they're
magic.
not good.
So,
Yeah.
like, for instance, you can be jelly blooded, which means
Yeah.
that your blood is literally made of jelly. It originally comes from goblins, but you grow a moss or a fungus on your body in a symbiotic relationship.
Mm.
And that is technically a part of our magic and tech, but it's genetic. It's not,
Yeah.
I mean, you can actually learn how to
Yeah.
become jelly blooded, but for goblins it is a genetic thing. We also wanted to divorce these things from their lineages, not entirely, but like to an extent. Um, Trying to get rid of the races in D&D while also still being ethical. You know
Mm-hmm.
how it is. And so like that's not really a magic, but it's not really a
Not
tech
tech either. Yeah.
either. So
Yeah.
like what do we call that? Like where would we put that? Right? If we're not going to put it with goblins and with lineages.
Yeah.
So we ended up with something that was a little bit more broad. So anomalies.
Yeah.
Anyway, Candy,
Yeah.
you're going to
No,
finish
that makes
the
Yeah.
sense.
answer to your
Which is
question.
your favorite
Yeah. No,
candy?
that's good.
Which one? Tell
Yeah.
me.
So Leia kind of stole my thunder with explaining the jelly blood
Oh no, I'm
because
Oh.
sorry.
no, you're good, you're good. So yeah, I think jelly blood is one of my favorite. Just sort of based off of like the goblins and the culture of the goblins and what being jelly blooded allows them to to do culture wise. It's not
Mm.
something. Yeah, it's not something that necessarily others can do, but it doesn't give you any benefits really,
Yeah.
right? It's just sort of based off of, their culture and them it being their genetics, right? But I like the idea of of the goblins and growing like the mosses and molds and funguses on themselves, and they have to take care of it.
Mm.
So like going a little bit deeper into the lore, like if you don't take care of it, you get sick, right? And so that could cause a wound.
Yeah.
Right? And if you do take care of it really well or do something special with it, then you might be able to get a little of something of a benefit. And that's actually for anybody that's jelly blooded, right?
Yeah.
You might be able to get a little benefit of it. If you find some sort of let's say fertilizer or something that does something, special. You can kind of work that into the story. But just like one of the things that's sort of my favorite that's more cultural
Mm-hmm.
and genetic with it is it's something that I kind of came up with they basically have like a sweat lodge because they're jelly blooded. They they can go to like basically a sweat lodge and like collect the sweat to do things.
Huh.
Um, so one of the
Very
things that it
cool.
does, yeah, one of the things that it does is that it allows them to um, like promote an elder goblin, and so that elder goblin will drink it, and they actually grow up to I think 7 feet tall, where goblins are usually about
Mm-hmm.
3 to 4. Right, and so they can get really big, they can get really buff. It just allows a few little extra things
Interesting.
culturally for the goblins. But yeah, I just kind of love like the jelly blood. But there's so many,
Oh,
there's
that's
so
neat.
many. There's some really cool ones, but I think that one right now is my favorite.
Oh, I love that. What about Leah? I have a feeling I know which one it is for you, but please do tell me. Do tell me anyway.
So I don't know. So for like obviously Divinity
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
is the one that I will go with, and it is um so in undergrad I took a class on death and dying, and it is one of the courses that I think changed my trajectory as a human being and as a person, to understand the ways in which human beings die and the cultural practices
Mm-hmm.
around those things is wild
Mm-hmm.
as a history. And so divinity, which is generally like this, you have this divine power and it's massive and you do all these crazy things and
Mm-hmm.
you're a god and that's the coolest thing ever, like kind of like the height of high fantasy,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to take your D&D character and kill a god somewhere like that.
Yeah.
You've made it to level 20 when
Oh
you're
yeah. Oh yeah.
doing that. Like, to take that concept and actually and reverse it and to say this, no, this is a meditation in loss. And what do you do with that? Do you try to preserve it as much as possible? Do you go kill someone else with divinity so that you can retain your power in your life? Do you um just kind of decide that actually I'm going to give as much as I can until the moment I am gone? Are you like, what are you doing with that, and how does that work, and what are you giving to the world? What are you taking from the world? And how do you l- live in that kind of grief, which in America we don't allow our
Mm-hmm.
people to do. Grieving is something that we hold inside. We do not let out. We must be very stoic at funerals. It's understandable if you have an emotional outburst, but it's not something that we necessarily expect in those spaces.
Yeah.
And so I really love Divinity for that meditation and loss, while also being able to do fun little god things. uh, so like Small is a character that I created who is just a small little guy who is a tiny little kind of almost Furby alien looking thing, who got pulled into Ajurea many hundreds of years ago, and was like, well, everyone likes cute things, so I guess I'll be cute. And it's just um, presents himself as the god of good sleep, and just goes around giving favors to inns to give everyone a good sleep at this inn, and that's Small.
I love that so much. I love that god. Thank you. Please give people good sleep. Yes.
Um, but I love all of our anomalies. That's the hard part about it. Chroma is a power entirely based on color.
Mm-hmm.
They, like those who use chroma, eat different things with different colors, and that gives them different powers.
That's so cool.
Um, I love Jelly Blooded so much. The goblins are such a fun time, especially as an SL. Like, oh my gosh, making different kinds of goblins and like how they interact with different fungi and stuff. The best. Highly recommend. Um, Smoke is really great, mostly because Alfira are the ones that created it. They're mouse like people. Like that's it's just really fun to be like, yeah, I'm gonna throw smoke and then disappear. I'm gonna throw smoke and now there's an illusion and you don't know which way I'm going. Um, and or like you throw smoke and you heal someone.
Cool.
Or you're playing in an evil campaign and you hurt someone with it. Intensormancy, which is one of our only anomalies that comes directly from Confluence, is gravity magic, and
Mm.
that's ridiculous. and very fun. Um,
Not the
so like I
designers
don't.
going, it's ridiculous and fun.
And also like the
Theme
ones
is
that we
so
have in
good.
this book are not even a fraction of the number of
Yeah,
anomalies that actually exist.
yeah,
So if we get to actually publish everything that we could in terms of like all regions of Confluence, we're talking 40, 50, 100 other anomalies that we could bring into this without even trying.
Get
Like that's how much stuff there is.
yeah.
exclamation point Confluence. Back it
Yes.
now. I want to see
um
them. So back it now. Thanks, folks. Appreciate y'all.
Yeah, we got like
uh
10 or 12 in this book, I think. That's
Oh
it.
my god.
I know we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Well,
7 right now. We might actually only have 6 for the anomalies.
yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
it's not that many because they are. I mean, like, so smoke is 16 pages, right? So where some of our other facets
Meaty.
are,
Meaty amount of
yeah, some of
pages.
some of our facets are like 2 or 3 pages max, or 1 page. That's all the information you need. A lot of our anomalies are a gazillion pages long, and one of them that Seven wants us to do is called the scale magic, and that's just wizards. And it's like, yeah, I want a whole wizard's compendium. We're like, cool. It's
Cool.
gonna be a
Sure.
whole book by itself. Okay.
Not the principal has given you homework now, too.
Yeah, no, it's so that's yeah. We have many, many more anomalies to come, but in this book there will be 7 to 10 probably total.
Yeah, yeah.
That's deeply awesome. Thank you all so much. And with that, I want, as we are beginning to wrap up here, I want to kind of like ask y'all questions about the project as a whole.
Mhm.
There's a lot of love, as I've mentioned before, and all of you have mentioned before. It's been many, many years that Confluence has been developed in development in its various different forms and stages with various different teams. But on that note, the Confluence project and team, you all have done some pretty incredible initiatives within even just crowdfunding it with regional pricing. And I wanted to kind of ask you all about like that particular move and making that choice and bringing that to life. It always feels like the standard means TTRPG rulebooks have to be priced a certain way. And this seems, in my opinion, a pretty radical move, to say otherwise.
All of a sudden my headphones were dying and I was getting beeped at. Anyway,
Not beeped at. All
um,
right. I'm glad I could save you
Kandi, do
from
you want to
that.
take this first?
Oh, okay. So I want to just do sort of like a bit of an, I guess, intro. We'll see. We'll see how it turns out. But
Okay.
so what I want to say is that the the regional pricing came from the way we have structured our team and our work environment,
Mm-hmm.
our our philosophies,
Yeah.
um, as a team over the 3 years. Like we didn't start out like there was a lot of good things in place, but we've worked as a team specifically on how to work as a team
Mm.
and the philosophies in game design in just our everyday lives and things like that. And so um because we have an international team, it's a little bit easy for us to think internationally. And
Yeah.
so Shabam was actually the person that came up with the idea, and we're like immediately yes, because it fits with the philosophies that we've talked about over the last 3 years, the North Stars that we've written for the project and our team and things like that. So that's just kind of the intro that I wanted to
Yeah.
bring. Leia, if you want to go into more detail, um, I don't know.
Oh, yeah. So I mean, Candy really said it, I think. But
Yeah.
I think that like when we're thinking about how we're pricing everything, it's about not only how much it costs to get it printed, get it
Mm-hmm.
shipped, everything like that,
Oh
but
yeah, of
also
course.
like paying our people and like what that means. And like we talk about manufacturing costs a lot, but what are the costs of actually like writing the thing? Um and So all of that goes into how you price something. We had a lot of conversations about how we were going to price every single item that we had. If we get 70K, we get those dice out there, you will notice that those dice are not as expensive as so many of the dice that are in the stores for a reason, because we felt that like everyone loves the clickety clackety beautiful little toys, and we want to be
Yeah.
able, and we want people to be able to get them. And so we thought, I would say pretty deeply about how much each of our thing was going to cost.
Yeah.
Shabam did come up with the regional pricing, and it's really important for us for this game to be accessible in every single place that our writers come from, at the very least.
Yeah.
Like that, it would be, I think, um, for me, a little bit ridiculous to say no to a request like that, because
Yeah.
that's the, like when we think about the amount of value that our American users using USD are going to get out of this,
Mm-hmm.
then we also need to be thinking about what is it in a rupee?
Yeah.
Like how much value are you getting out of that thing for this amount? And it costs more
Yeah.
because of the conversion rate.
Yeah.
Therefore, it should cost less in other places. Now, we can't do that for the physical copies because it just costs us too much to get it there. We can certainly do it for our digital material. Like
Yeah.
in the places that you can, I think that's like where you do it, because
Yeah.
all of our PDFs are just, we don't, I mean, we send that to you and then you
Yeah.
have it. Like, you
Yeah.
know?
No, I love that, and it means a lot to me, especially because I think I have the unique experience of like not only living in the West but also being from the global South. So I've had, I've experienced being a TTRPG performer and everything while being stateside in the UK. Part of my AP career was when I was briefly in the UK for a bit. And then I came back to Malaysia, and I work in Malaysia in times for TTRPG stuff. I luckily have a day job that's in Europe hours, so I do my TTRPG stuff in the morning. EU hours in the afternoon, evening is my day job. And like you said, pricing is hard. Like regional pricing for like TTRPGs is so incredibly difficult, especially when you're earning in ringgit, which is my nationality's currency. And every time I look at a Kickstarter backer kit, I have to look at the price and times 5 each time and have to do that math. So like that initiative, when I saw it on twitter.com, it was a really, really important move, and I'm glad that you all adopted it. Shout out to Shubham. Please go follow him at Lore Garden. Please. He's great. Love Shubham. Uh awesome. And we've talked a lot throughout this interview about the values and the moves that the team has made, the principles, the ethos, everything that goes into this, right? And there's a lot of standards within the TTRPG industry, and it's a lot of the works that you've done is to ensure that you're being very, very intentional about like the standards that y'all are bringing to this team. How has that experience been in establishing your own standards here, for the project that you're bringing to life? And what have been the challenges to that?
What else?
It has the ethos that we already run by
Fun.
within it.
Yeah.
It has like the practices as a group that we have agreed on.
Yeah.
It has the team breakdown and also what you would be hired for, how we see you potentially fitting into that space.
Yeah.
Um, and uh, we also put all of our like books that we've already like whatever we're currently working on would go also in the welcome packet. It's pretty extensive. I think it's got like 10 folders
Oh my
altogether.
goodness.
Just like here's all of this information and here's this welcome letter, and we want we understand that in an interview you are interviewing us as much as we are interviewing you,
Yeah.
and that should always be clear. So we tell people in the interview, come with questions. Half of this interview is going to be for us interviewing you, and the second half is going to be you interviewing us.
Mm-hmm.
um and so we generally, it's about an hour. We do 30 minutes of here are
Mm-hmm.
questions we have for you, and 30 minutes of questions that you have for us, and what does that look like? What does that mean? We also we ask people, how many people are you comfortable with being in this interview. So if the interviewee tells us, like, if they're like, "Oh, please don't send 5 people into this room," we won't do that. But as long as they're comfortable, we'll have as many people on the team as want to be there are a part of the hiring process. At minimum, the entire team that would be bringing on a person will read over any, like, the resume or any of the work that
Yeah.
people send in. So each team does get a choice on who they are bringing to the table as a team, because it impacts them the most.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are going to be spending the time with this person. So even if me as the project lead am doing the interview, the team itself gets to decide, like, here's this list of people we would want to interview. We're going to review that list, and then we're going to send out invites, and then we're going to go through all of the people and their work, and then we're going to say, okay, who do we actually want to interview based on that? And then, like, we do that interview process. And
Yeah.
it's pretty extensive. I'm really hoping that this next time we do hiring, we will be paying people for their time to interview.
That's incredible. Oh my
So
goodness.
that's like, every time we do an interview process, I'm like, okay, so this went well and this was not good, and here are the things that we want to do to
Yeah.
make it even more ethical, hopefully, than we did last time. And so that's kind of the evolution that I want for our the next thing that we do. Because you're giving us our time, you're going through all of our information. Like, that's the thing, is like, we give you this huge packet of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, like, you should be being paid for the time that you're spending and our material. I think that's probably another one that we are different with, is like, you are paid for all the time spent reading our books,
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
When you come on as a full team member, we pay for training, because that's
Yeah.
So we don't pay like per word written.
Most of the time. We do have some
Most of the
contracts right
time.
now. They're
Well, yeah, guest writers, yeah, not like full team
Yeah.
members, but like guest writers and stuff. We'll do sort of the normal for that. Although, we still have our own little twist on that, right?
Yeah.
But I like all of that thought that goes into the interview process. We try to put into everything else that we do. And
Yeah.
then this was actually in place already when I came on. And I think this was something from Seven. Seven actually also posted about it a few days ago. Is that we don't, for the full team members, we don't pay per word, we pay per hour. And so when you're in meetings, when you're reading books, when you're doing your research, all those things that you don't get paid for when you get paid by the word, you get paid for, because you're logging that time and getting paid for it.
Yeah.
And so that's just another one of the ways that we're different from the regular TTRPG industry, right? Unless you're like a full-time employee, which
Yeah.
that's different,
That's
right?
different. Yeah.
Like, I came on and we did like they did like in the contract there's a can't think of what it's called. The retainer, there we go. And so I got paid beforehand for so many hours, and then once I use that up, then I get paid on top of that. And that's how everybody like has a choice of being hired in, is with a retainer. So we you get paid in advance.
That's awesome.
Which is kind of nice. And so, like I said earlier, like, we didn't start out with like the North Stars and the philosophies and all of that stuff necessarily. That's something we built on as we were starting to work as a team and starting to mesh. And like, okay, hey, this is probably something that we need. We added that stuff on to, the project. And so it's just something that it's just made this the best experience. Like, I can't believe this is the first like TTRPG job that I've been hired on, and it is probably going to be the best that I've ever been hired on, because I don't see anybody else doing all of the things that we've done.
Yeah.
Till you hire your own team, Kandi.
Right.
Till you hire your own team.
It's
You're pulling a Kandi where you're doing the, it's your turn now.
Right, it's your turn.
I think one of the things we don't talk about a ton, but I do want to talk about here, is also something that I think Seven put out in an update a couple days ago, is We are hope in the future going to be entirely open source. Now, I say in the future
Cool.
because we have to make the wiki, and that costs money, and so we got to do that. But eventually, all of the work will be open source. Like all of the rules will be open source. For instance, for sure.
Yeah.
We're pretty committed to our stuff being very accessible.
Mm-hmm.
And also, one of the other things that Seven and I had many discussions when we were like, all right, so we're going to hire a team. What are the things that we want to do for that team that would
Yeah.
maybe be different than other spaces we've been in? And one of that is ownership. So outside of some of the things that are owned by Seven, so like some of the lineages that are very much Seven's lineages and things like that, we own all of our work, from the mechanics to the place, like the locations that we have written. Then we can take that work and we can put it in other stuff, and we can work on that without um like, even for monetary gain, doesn't matter, it's ours. So that's one of the ways that's one of the, I think, one of the major differences between
Yeah.
us and some other spaces. I don't want to say all,
Yeah.
because
Yeah, of
I'm
course.
sure,
There's probably some. But
but
also no NDA. That is
oh
been
yeah, no
No
NDA,
oh
NDA.
my
no
god. No
NDA.
NDA. Like because that's the reason I can talk about some of the future stuff that we have. Now we
Yeah.
want to like I don't want to go into like so much detail about it, but like it's very refreshing to be able to bring up something from another region because it just
Yeah.
like you're on it, right?
Because I remember that conversation very fondly. It was it was a lot of fun to hear about like Confluence all those years ago. I say all those years ago. It's like 2 years ago. It's not that long. Uh,
It feels
also
like an
also
incredible.
very
it
long.
feels like yesterday and and an eternity at the same time. Welcome to the
Exactly.
times we live in, folks. No, I love hearing that. It's deeply hopeful and heartening for me to hear, as well as I'm sure my audience in the wider TTRPG space to hear that, a better way of managing our projects, of, pursuing our art and being paid fairly for it is possible. And we're seeing it. Like this is it happening in action. Um, it takes work, it takes time, and I'm sure it's difficult. Um, but it is possible, and it's heartening to see. And I love that. And I think in terms of wrapping up this interview, I'm gonna wrap it up with a nice one. It's a self-indulgent question. It's one that I've thought about a lot as a game designer. Where in my own little mind, I think about like, you daydream sometimes about what would it be like your game being played at other tables, what worlds people will build, what kind of experience they will have. And I want to ask you both, what do you hope the experience will be when someone picks up a copy of Confluence and plays it and they have it in their little hands? What is the experience you hope they have?
Is this really an easy one?
I want it to be entirely individual.
Mm,
I want it to be a story that you could have only created in that moment, in that place, with those people.
beautifully said.
That couldn't happen anywhere else.
Beautifully said.
Sounds a bit weird after what Leia said.
I'm here for it.
Which I fully agree with. I fully agree with. But one of my favorite like pieces of the game is the focus card database, which we didn't get a chance to talk about.
Oh
But
yes.
right, so I love the like this is the only place that you can play this. But I want people to feel comfortable building worlds with other tables,
Mm,
right? And so like you can still have those things in your game where like it can only happen in your game, but in that game you made this really rad NPC and you're like, "Oh man, like this person is so cool. We made this focus card for them. You know what? I'm going to share this with another table. If they want to use this really rad NPC, they can."
I love
or
that.
this location that we came up with. I really want to build a web of Confluence with the focus card database, where you've got your own little piece here, but then it connects to different
I
games just by
that's
those story
just
elements.
that's just so cool. And before we can even build that web, I need you all to go and back Confluence right now, folks. Right now. Thank you both so much for being a guest on Dicey Banter. I'm so deeply honored. And a reminder, folks, please use exclamation point guests as well as exclamation point Confluence. Go follow them as well as go and back this project right now. I need to see my funny little dragon man in everyone else's tables. Please let me make it happen. And with that, let's do some quick introductions. Let's start with Kandi. Please introduce yourself and let folks know where they can find you, next upcoming projects that you keep an eye out on, all that good stuff.
Okay. Yes, again, I am Kandi Williams. You can find me usually at Kandi Janine, KandiJeanne, on the socials, and on itch.com, where I have a couple of games that I have self-published there. I am the lore QA lead of Confluence, and I guess the next project that I'm going to put out is I'm not sure what to call it yet, but I think I'm just going to say right now an ash can version of my game Briarbound, which is based off of the Brer Rabbit folklore. I'm actually just going to put out the ash can version and then continue working on it for a full version, hopefully
I
to
am
release
looking.
here.
I am looking.
I'm so excited about it because it's gotten great playtest feedback. So
I'm looking. I'm very excited. Amazing. Leia, please introduce yourself. Let folks know where they can find you and stuff to keep an eye on for you.
Yeah, so I am Leia Liebezeller. I'm the project lead for Confluence, and you can find me at PlayScholar basically on everything. Blue Sky, though, trying to get off of Twitter. So if you can add me
Fair.
on Blue Sky, please
yeah,
do. Thank you. uh, as for other projects, I'll shout out Confluence first. We do end on the 15th. So come back us. We are so close to getting funded, and we have so many stretch goals. So many stretch goals. Though it would be really great to get to some of them, including the Transplanar AP, which is on our map. So help us
Yes.
get there. We also have a stream. So if you liked what we were talking about here, we'll be doing a 10-hour stream on Saturday where we have like Alchemy RPGs, Dan Munoz coming for an interview. Kayla from Transgender Deathmatch Legend 2 will be coming. And also some people from Fatebound who we're doing our cross collab with. So that'll be on the Publishing Goblin YouTube. Please come hang out with us. Or go watch the VOD if this doesn't come out until after then.
It'll be. I mean, when is that happening? This
Saturday.
Saturday?
So I think
Saturday.
Yeah, probably not quite yet,
not
but
quite yet.
Yeah,
Go watch
but
the
you
VOD
should
of
go
that
watch the
because
VOD.
that.
Go watch the
yeah,
VOD.
absolutely.
Go watch
Oh,
the VOD of all of that stuff if you liked what we were talking about here. We'll be going more into a bunch of Confluence stuff. So please do.
Mhm.
As for my own projects, I am currently working. Well, Kandi and I are both working
Yeah.
on a ARG called Finding Relic Punk Oddities. Now it is in development, but we are doing a monthly newsletter about the process of that development until it is done. So you can follow us there. It's a game about ephemera and queerness, and may one day have an TTRPG of its own. And and then I am working on a Furby TTRPG.
I
So that
love
is
this. Great.
it's all about your small town getting overrun by Furbies from a new toy factory in town, and you gotta go save your parents. So do that.
Love that.
Uh, and then in a completely different vein, my dissertation happened during COVID, and so the study that I did ended up being on how TTRPGers played during the plague, literally, and what that did to our community and to
What did the
online
plague do
play.
to us?
And so I'm working on a game right now which does not have a name quite yet, but it is about It's like a solo journaling game about going out in the world and taking a photography of the ways the world has changed, and the things that you remember about time in the time before. So those are my projects right now.
Thank you both so much for being on Dicey Banter. It's such an honor to interview you both, and it's such an honor to shout out an incredible project at Confluence. A reminder, go follow them, exclamation points guest, as well as exclamation point Confluence. Going back this right now so that when this releases, I hope this is fully funded by the time this releases. But if it isn't by the time this episode is out, you better go and do it right now. And I'm hoping to see you all going back to this incredible project. I'll go quickly introduce myself. Hi, everyone. I'm Valiant Dorian. I use he, him as pronouns. I've been your host this evening for Dicey Banter. In terms of stuff that I'm a part of, if you like my games, if you like We're Beasts, I have my game, The Beast Within, thanks to Kandi, who is here and in person, who inspired me to write this game. The Beast Within is an 80s and 90s grunge fighting game, action RPG, where you play as werebeasts. Unleash your wrath and live wild-heartedly while you play this fun game. The game is under playtesting right now, but you can get the quick start demo that is a living document over on my itch.io page. Go and check that out, exclamation point beast. Go and pick it up as it is a living document. You should be getting a big update soon, leading into the holidays, where you can have beast drives. That'll be very fun, isn't it? Beast drives, very fun. In terms of the other project that we kept mentioning throughout this entire interview, Transplanar RPG, we are back this weekend at time of recording with Arc 3. Arc 3 of the Chaos Protocol is premiering on Saturday. So by the time this is out, the first episode of Arc 3 would have already been out, which means more chaos for you in the upcoming weeks. Please come and support us. It is going to be a bloody good time, I think. Please come and check us out. For those of you who don't know about Transplanar, we're an all-transgender, POC-led cast as we make stories in a anti-orientalist and anti-colonialist world. Come and check us out. Arc 3 of the Chaos Protocol is going to come out soon. And if you're wondering about what I'm wearing, this is official Transplanar merch. Go and grab your own Transplanar merch designed by my husband, Max Daisy. Look at these gorgeous, gorgeous designs. Please go ahead and go and grab them. The holidays are coming up. Go treat yourself and support us over on TransplanerRPG.shop. And I appreciate that. Thank you all so much. And thank you again to my guests. We are probably going to rate somebody amazing, no doubt. So please hang on as we go and send some love over to their channel. And with that, take care, everybody. And I'll see you all later. Bye-bye.